Today, I'm talking to Delaine Blazek with Dele Health Tech, and they are on the leading, perhaps bleeding edge of fall detection. Fall detection is probably too simple. It really fall detection and prevention for older people, particularly in senior living. So, Delaine, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's sort of start by just talking about kind of the history of fall detection in senior living, where it started and what it looked like in the early days, what may be second generation and what current generation and what the future might hold.
Absolutely. That's a great start. So, as we all know, the origins of fall detection have been lights and alarms and pendants. I think everyone can agree that one of the best commercials growing up, I'm aging myself now, is I've fallen and I can't get up, right?
Yeah.
That was cutting edge tech back in the day and still, is very valuable and used in a lot of settings. It's just now we're looking at things a little bit differently. We have different needs and different desires from our aging population. And along with that comes a demand of more non wearables, less invasive, more aging with dignity. And that's really what we're trying to represent here at Dele Health Tech.
So what's wrong with the old help I can't get up technology?
Nothing's wrong with it per se. I wouldn't really
Okay.
go down that track. However, every technology has limitations. So, with regards to pendants, the biggest limitations is in memory care with recalling to press the pendant. And then also in assisted living, a lot of people will just tell us, I didn't want to inconvenience the nursing staff, so I'm not going to press this. Thirdly, it's just the whole, yeah, it's on my hook in my drawer there because, it's just not very stylish. I don't want to be those people.
I'm a little older than you, right? So I'm technically old enough to go live in a senior living community. And I imagine the stigma that kind of sits there with wearing a pendant around my neck. It kind of screams old and frail and infirm, right?
Exactly. And no one wants to feel less than their former selves when they
That's
were
right.
rejuvenated and young and feeling at the top of their game. So I get that. We want to help people protect their privacy. We want to help them age with dignity. And part of that is a philosophy of not being on a live video stream. There's nothing more scary for some of these people is to be recorded, to be watched, to be monitored, unless you're going to be a reality TV star. And that's not really at this age.
Well, yeah, I'm just sort of thinking, I'm not, I think about, I'm not sure I'd want a camera in my bedroom to protect me from falls as I don't, I go from my bed to my bathroom to go to in the middle of the night in underwear, right? I mean, it's kind of creepy. So,
Exactly. No one wants to be pictured that way. And even more scary, the cameras obviously can't go in the bathrooms. And then just our discovery from data that 40% of falls are in the bathrooms, it leaves a lot of unprotected area and time. So we have a combined solution. We do have in-room sensors. They're non-camera, they're non-wearable, and they can detect falls. They can send notifications through the front-end nurse call system, where we do have an app of our own. The secondary product we're calling Dele Predict, and that's more of our predictive analytics related to data fusion, where we can fuse sensor data with electronic health record data and any other data streams such as rehab, any external EMRs, and create some really true insights based on history and diagnoses, medication, as to when someone may be a high risk resident, when they may be a frequent faller, and how to help them close the intervention loop.
so let's talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So I'm an operator. I've got Dele Health Tech technology, and so how does it help me as an operator?
So it helps you from a variety of ways, but number one is elongating the length of stay. The number one reason people go to the hospital is usually attributed to a fall, and it's also a reason they're not able to return. So, number one, keeping residents safe all the time when at all possible, especially when they're not in group forums. When they're in the rooms, they're at a higher risk of falling and being unnoticed. So, that's one thing. And then the second thing is understanding exactly what prediction means. Prediction doesn't mean watching a playback and we're predicting that it's going to repeat itself again. Prediction is actually taking diagnoses and medications and forming correlations when people may be at a higher risk of falls because they just took the medication or they changed the medication. They may be more dizzy, and making it a more personalized and individual experience for the resident.
So that ties into the data fusion technology via Bluetooth, via Wi-Fi primarily.
So yeah, the data fusion is a platform. So we can stream in that live data from the sensors at any given time, pass through alerts, as we mentioned before, but also collect information from the third party sources like the EHR is the most common. That's the largest source of health information that we can pull in and populate. So both of those things would be going into the same location, which is this data fusion platform.
Okay. And then what my team gets, what my team sees is the first thing they get, of course, is they get alerts if there's an immediate, either there's a fall or there's an immediate, I guess really if there's a fall, right?
Exactly. So we can determine when someone has fallen, send out the notification. We've also had some other really interesting scenarios where we have high risk residents and they put, let's say, their leg over the bed and they know they're going down immediately. So we can tighten up exclusion zones around the bed so that if they do that, we can notify earlier so they can go in and help them out before they hit the floor. But yes, the whole concept is detect falls.
Essentially, for each resident, you end up building sort of a fall profile.
Exactly, a fall profile with a fall history. So then we can start learning more about the resident, learning when they fall, when they stumble, when they fall and get back up. Was it in the bathroom? Was it in the bedroom? Was it en route? And then we can place some predictions along with that based on their previous health information.
Okay, so can you maybe actually walk me through a couple of scenarios? Obviously, we're not going to do names and communities, but maybe you could actually tell me about a resident or two or three and just kind of paint some scenarios about how it actually works in real life.
Sure. So a resident is in their room. The most common is they'll just fall, and sometimes it's a slow fall. It's not the quick fall that triggers the wearable. It's like more of a sliding off of the recliner into the floor and then down. Maybe a little bobble there, come up, come down, but eventually they're down. So after 30 seconds, we will notice that the body mass index is below 24 inches unless we have configured the sensors differently, and then send an alert to either the nurse call system via the app or our own app if the nurse call system doesn't allow for that.
Okay, and then let's also talk about maybe a scenario or two on the fall profile. So resident is, and you'll probably have to sort of give me a specific, but I'll sort of prompt a little bit, but just a resident where, well, I guess what I'm really looking for is a story about where a resident was at risk and you were actually able to look at this fall profile and do mitigation so they don't fall or they have fewer falls.
Exactly. So as you mentioned, we'll collect data all the time from the sensors. And then sometimes communities are really good about identifying, hey, I think these 5 residents are actually our highest risk residents. So we can attribute some points toward that, if you will. And then based on the algorithm from the predictive information and the EHR, they're assessed and given a fall index score. So from that, we can be able to determine, do they need more interventions? Do we need to do a reassessment of the room and see what the fall factors are that are attributed to their frequent falling? There's a lot of falls in that, right? But nonetheless, the index then can be viewed through the prediction platform, not only from the resident perspective, but the community perspective and at the enterprise level. So we can then do some measurement of if these 3 communities are doing really well with their falls and these are struggling, they have more high risk fallers, we can tease into that.
So I, at the end of the day, my concern if I'm an operator is I'm trying to figure out how to do this in the right way so it doesn't sound too economically crass, right? I mean, ultimately, my goal is to create a great experience and to keep my residents safe. But I also know that falls have this profound economic impact on my community. It means that it reduces length of stay. It means that it increases liability, it increases more significantly the amount of staff I need per resident. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of interventions that that you're suggesting or helping communities to do to mitigate those risks?
So yeah, that's a really great example. And then we've started with the whole concept of wanting to close the loop on falls so that we can keep residents in-house longer and healthier for longer so that they're not falling all over the place. So we can detect falls, we can begin to form predictive correlations of when they are going to fall based on data. And then the third component of that is what we call Dele Protect, and that is actually prescribing the post-fall interventions so that we can reduce the detection. So if we're doing it right, our protection product will actually reduce our detection product, if that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I'm sure you can never get to 100%, but in some sense, the prediction product, if it were, in a dream world, right, you could get to the prediction part, so you would never need the detection part.
Exactly. And then the protection is detect, predict, and protect. Protect is actually prescribing. So, for example, we notice someone's falling in the bathroom. They do it over time. They do it at the same time every night. They do it, 3 times a month. And then we can determine, okay, this is when we think it's going to happen. It's usually between 3 and 5 a.m. We're getting these notices someone's fallen in the bathroom. So then protection would actually prescribe, for example, put a handrail by the toilet in the bathroom. And then we can populate that back in either to the EHR or through our platform. And then the care team can select to do that or disregard. So they always have the choice to include the interventions or not. But just to be able to get that prescriptive measure really closes the loop on making a difference and not just watching people fall.
How do the staff feel about the system?
The staff feel great when we can send the alerts through the nurse call system because they're like, great, no other login, no other place we have to go to document, no more duplicate data entry. Thank goodness. And then operators like it too, because if, let's say, with all of the acquisitions and the changing of properties, they may have multiple nurse call systems. So the solution that we have, we can unify those and still only send alerts through one vehicle.
Got you. And so, but I would think that from a sort of a hard standpoint, if I were a team member, or being able to get an alert, walk into a room and stop somebody and see somebody's on their way to a fall, like the gentleman you talked about, probably feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, who wouldn't feel good about being the superhero of the day, right?
yes. So I love this. So if you have a Dele Health Tech system in your building, what you are doing is you end up making your caregivers, your nursing staff into superheroes.